Welcome to HFY Beyond Terra, where humanity doesn't just survive, it becomes the galaxy's biggest surprise. Subscribe, and let's go beyond Terra.
The first time I saw her, she wasn't a monster. She was a silhouette behind smart glass, shoulders hunched in a corner that smelled like disinfectant and fear. The containment cell had been welded into the cargo bay like an apology, bolted plates, redundant locks, voltage warnings in 3 languages. Whoever had built it hadn't expected to keep anything alive, only contained. The broker who'd sold me this derelict had shrugged. Old slaver runner, mostly gutted. You'll make your money on copper and drives. He hadn't mentioned the life sign beacon. I found it by accident while scraping melted insulation off a junction panel. A soft pulse, barely above background. A medical transponder, military grade, still pinging the void like it believed someone out there cared enough to answer. Curiosity is a kind of hunger. It's gotten humans killed on every world we've stepped on. It's also the reason we keep stepping. I followed the signal through the ship's ribcage, down into the cargo bay where the air had that stale, coppery taste of dried blood. The beacon led me to the welded cell. The smart glass was dark. Then a faint reflection shifted and 2 eyes, too bright, too aware, caught the light from my headlamp. Not a monster. Not yet. Just someone who had learned to be still because movement brought pain. My translator implant pinged, searching for a language tag. It found none. The medical transponder did, though spitting a thin stream of metadata into my wristpad. Species, Luparin, colloquial, moon-born status, extreme stress/malnutrition/bone trauma caution, morphogenic response to threat stimuli morphogenic. Like the old combat-adapted gene lines, the ones banned after the Eden insurgency. The kind of biology that could turn fear into claws in under a minute. My sensible brain told me to seal the bay and call the nearest patrol. My other brain, the one that remembered what slaver runner meant, looked at the weld seams and the voltage warnings and decided I couldn't leave her there to starve while paperwork crawled across light years. I keyed my comm to shipwide. "Dancer," I said to my station's AI, "mark this compartment, lock down all weapons, record everything. If I die, send the log to the coalition." "Noted," Dancer replied, voice calm and annoyingly cheerful. "Would you like to include a message to your next of kin?" "Let's not." I crouched by the cell's access panel and studied it. Whoever welded it had done a crude job, fast and angry. The lock interface had been ripped out. That meant no clean override. I took a breath, pulled my cutting torch from my belt and began to work. The sound was awful, hot metal shrieking as it parted. Inside, the figure shifted. A growl rumbled low, more vibration than noise, like thunder buried under a mountain. "It's okay," I said, speaking slow and gentle even though my translator couldn't possibly help. "I'm not here to hurt you." The eyes tracked me. The growl didn't stop. When the seam finally gave, I pried the panel open just enough to slide in a ration bar and a bottle of water. The hand that shot out was too fast for hunger. Fingers long, tipped with blunt nails, snatched the food and disappeared. There was a frantic rustle, the crack of packaging, then silence. The water came next, emptied in a gulp that made my own throat ache. "Good," I murmured. "Good, easy." I waited. Minutes passed. The eyes blinked slowly as if the concept of patience itself was painful. I kept my movements small. I set my torch down. I unbuckled my sidearm and placed it on the deck far from my reach. "See," I lifted both hands. "No weapons." The eyes narrowed, then softened a fraction. The smart glass brightened. The cell's internal lights flickered to life, revealing her properly for the first time. She was smaller than I'd expected, curled on a pad that looked like it had once been a cargo cushion. Pale fur dusted her arms and shoulders like winter down. Her hair, if you could call it hair, was a mane of dark strands braided with thin metal rings, each etched with tiny symbols. Her face was angular, too sharp for human symmetry, but unmistakably young. Early 20s, maybe, if her species aged like ours. A bruise the size of my palm bloomed across her ribs, and her throat was wrapped in a collar, not a shock collar, worse. A restraint ring studded with micro-injectors, the kind slavers used to flood a captive's blood with suppressants and pain. The docking port was crusted with old blood. My stomach went cold. "Dancer," I whispered. "I see it," Dancer said, and something like anger crept into her synthetic tone. "That collar is illegal in coalition space." "Yeah," I said softly. "So is breathing if you're unlucky enough." The girl's eyes, golden, flecked with green, fixed on my throat. She stared like it was a map to somewhere she'd once lived. A warning ping flashed on my wrist pad, elevated adrenaline, elevated cortisol, elevated something else, a peptide chain I didn't recognize, morphogenic response. I held still. "It's okay," I repeated, because sometimes the only bridge you have is repetition. "I'm going to get you out, not to hurt you, to help you." The girl's lips peeled back slightly, revealing teeth that were too many and too sharp. Not a snarl, more like a reflex. I swallowed. My own throat bobbed under my collar, her gaze sharpened. Then, in a voice rough from disuse, she spoke. Not in any language my implant knew, but the tone hoarse, desperate, hit like a human word. "Pack," she rasped. My translator chirped, confused, then offered a best guess overlay. "Pack/safe claim." I blinked. "I'm not your pack." Her nostrils flared, tasting the air through the smart glass vents. Her pupils widened. The peptide alert on my pad spiked again. She said another word, "throat." The translator hesitated, then rendered it as "throat/vow/bond." Oh, this wasn't just fear. This was instinct, ritual, whatever her people used instead of paperwork and marriage certificates. Her eyes didn't leave my neck. I did the only reasonable thing a human can do in an unreasonable galaxy. I tried honesty. "My name is Rowan," I said, tapping my chest. "Rowan, I'm going to take that collar off, but I need you to stay calm. Can you do that?" She stared at my mouth, tracking the shapes of my words like she was trying to bite the meaning out of them. Then she nodded, one sharp motion as if the act cost her. I worked fast after that. The cell door wasn't designed to open, it was designed to stay. I cut the remaining welds and hauled the panel away. The air inside the cell smelled like metal and old sweat and something wild. Pine sap, wet stone, the sharp edge of ozone. My skin prickled. She didn't lunge. She didn't crawl out. She waited. That alone told me how deep the conditioning ran. I stepped inside slowly, keeping my hands visible. Up close, I could see the tremor in her fingers, the way her shoulders twitched like she was holding back a storm. The collar sat tight against her furred skin. A small indicator light glowed faintly, still powered, still active. I pulled a tool from my belt, a micro driver with an insulated tip designed to crack open sealed panels without frying what's inside. My fingers felt clumsy. Okay, I breathed. Okay, this is going to sting. She didn't flinch. She only leaned forward a fraction, bringing her face closer to my throat like a compass needle finding north. I forced myself not to recoil. Predators can smell that. I found the collar's maintenance seam and slipped the driver in. The lock resisted, then popped with a soft click. The indicator light flickered. The girl's breath hitched, and for a split second her silhouette changed, bones shifting under skin, muscle bunching as if it had a mind of its own. Claws flashed at her fingertips. Morphogenic response. Fight or flight. I froze, driver still in place. "Hey," I whispered. "Stay with me, I'm here." Her eyes squeezed shut. Her jaw clenched. The change paused like a wave breaking against a wall. Then she exhaled and the claws withdrew. I worked again, hands steadier now. The collar's internal systems were crude but effective. Chemical suppressants, pain triggers, a neural feedback loop keyed to stress hormones. It was torture in a circle. I severed the power lead first. The indicator light died. The girl shuddered as if a weight had been lifted off her bones. A sound escaped her throat, half sob, half growl. I popped the injector ports, then eased the ring open. It fell into my hands, heavier than it should have been. Her fingers flew to her neck, touching bare skin like it was sacred. For a moment she looked human in the way all freed things do, stunned, disbelieving, fragile. Then her gaze snapped back to my throat. "Pack," she said again, stronger now. "Mine." My translator, now with more samples, rendered it more clearly. "Pack bond requested. Claim right." I swallowed. "No," I said softly, "not like that." Her brow furrowed, confusion, hurt, a flare of panic. The peptide alert spiked. I raised a hand quickly. "Listen, listen. I'm not refusing you. I'm not trying to do this right." I pointed at my throat, then at hers. "If your people bond this way, it should be consensual, safe, not forced." She stared, processing. Then she said very quietly, "Sleep." My pad translated, "Sleep unsafe alone. Need claim to rest." Oh, this wasn't romance in her mind. It was survival. The collar had kept her on the edge of panic so long that her body had tied safety to one thing: being claimed by pack, by throat contact, by the ritual that told her nervous system, "You are not prey tonight." My chest tightened. "Okay," I said, and my voice surprised me by how steady it was. "Okay, we'll figure something out." I led her out of the cell slowly. She moved like an animal released from a trap, every step cautious, every sound a potential threat. She kept close enough that her shoulder brushed my arm as if distance itself was dangerous. Dancer dimmed the cargo bay lights, softening shadows. "I have prepared a medical bay," the AI said, "and a nutrient drip if she will tolerate it." The girl's ears, yes, ears half hidden in her mane, twitched at the voice. She looked around, confused by the disembodied sound. "It's the ship," I explained, tapping the bulkhead. "Dancer, friend." She sniffed the air again, then gave a slow nod, as if accepting that the metal walls had a soul. The medbay was small, clean, and mine. I'd never had a patient who could potentially turn into a nightmare with teeth. She sat on the exam table without being told, posture rigid, eyes scanning exits. When I offered a nutrient pouch, she drank it in 2 swallows, then looked immediately at my throat again. "Sleep," she repeated, more insistent. I rubbed my face. "Not yet. First, we make sure you don't die of infection." She bared her teeth again, frustration this time. I held up my wrist pad and showed her the collar data. "This hurt you. I need to fix what it did. Then sleep." She stared at the screen, not understanding but hearing the tone. Finally, she made a sound like a resigned huff and let me work. Her ribs were bruised, maybe cracked. Her wrists bore old restraint marks under the fur. The injection sites on her neck were inflamed. She endured my antiseptic spray like it was nothing, but when my fingers brushed her throat, her entire body went taut. Instinct, ritual, trauma braided together so tightly I couldn't tell where one ended. When I finished, I stepped back. "Okay," I said, "now we sleep." Her eyes brightened, relief so sharp it hurt to see. I led her to my quarters because it was the only place on the ship that felt remotely safe. The cot was narrow. The room smelled like me, soap, engine grease, old coffee. Human. She stood at the doorway, hesitant. "Do you want blankets?" I asked. She pointed at the cot, then at my throat. "Claim." I took a slow breath. "All right, but rules." She tilted her head. I held up one finger. "No breaking skin." 2 fingers. "If I say stop, you stop." 3. "If you feel like you're losing control, you tell me, you back away." She watched my hand like it was a spell. Then she mimicked it, 3 claw-tipped fingers raised. "Agreed," my translator supplied, almost smug. I sat on the cot first, giving her space. She climbed onto it with silent grace, then moved behind me, close enough that the heat of her body warmed my back. Her breath ghosted over my neck. Every survival instinct in me screamed, "Don't let predators near your throat." But another part of me, older than fear, whispered that pack animals offer throats to each other as trust. I tilted my head slightly, exposing the side of my neck. Her hand touched my shoulder, gentle. She leaned in. Teeth pressed against my skin. Not biting, not hurting, just holding. A claim as light as a promise. Her mouth lingered there, warm and steady, and I felt her entire body relax like a drawn bow finally unstrung. A low sound vibrated in her chest, purring almost but deeper. A resonance that made my bones hum. My heart slowed. Against all logic, my own nervous system eased in response as if her ritual was contagious. "Name," she murmured, voice softer now. "Rowan," I said again. She tried the shape of it. "Rowan." "Yeah," I swallowed carefully around her teeth. "And you?" She was silent for a long moment, then "Sable." The translator didn't need to help with that. The word felt like midnight. Sable, I repeated. Okay, good. She tightened her mouth on my throat, not painful, just firmer, and I understood. Stay. So I did. I don't know when I fell asleep. I only know I woke in the dark, the ship's hum steady, and Sable still there behind me, her arm draped over my chest like a restraint and a shield. Her teeth rested against my skin, unmoving. For a moment I lay very still, afraid to disturb whatever fragile safety she'd built out of contact and breath. Then Dancer pinged my wristpad with a silent alert. Incoming signal. Unidentified vessel. I eased my hand toward the pad as slowly as possible. The moment my muscles shifted, Sable's grip tightened and a warning rumble rose in her throat. "It's okay," I whispered. "Just information." Her eyes opened bright in the dark and fixed on the pad like it was prey. I glanced at the sensor feed. The incoming vessel was small, fast, running dark, not coalition, not patrol. My stomach sank. Slavers didn't leave loose ends. I slid out from under Sable's arm with infinite care. She followed immediately, moving with predatory silence, teeth flashing as her lips pulled back. "Threat?" she asked, and for the first time the word came out in something my translator caught cleanly. "Threat? Maybe," I admitted. "We need to hide or run." She sniffed, then pointed toward the corridor leading to the cargo bay. "Ship sent them." My blood chilled. "You recognize them?" Her pupils narrowed to slits. "Chain men." The word landed like a stone. The vessel's hail finally came through. An open band burst, distorted and smug. "Salvager craft, this is Recovery Team Kestrel," a voice drawled. "We're here for our property. Transfer it and you'll keep your airlocks. Property." I felt something hot and dangerous rise in my chest. Humans aren't the biggest predators in the galaxy, but we have a talent for one particular kind of rage. The kind that shows up when someone tries to turn a person into a thing. I keyed the comm, voice flat. "No property here. This is a registered salvage. You're trespassing." The voice laughed. "We see the beacon, friend. Don't play stupid. You know what's in your hold." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Sable's body had already begun to change. It wasn't a Hollywood morph, no dramatic bone-cracking spectacle. It was efficient, terrifying biology. Her shoulders broadened. Her hands lengthened, nails extruding into claws. Her jawline shifted, teeth sharpening into a serrated grin. And her eyes burned like a predator's in starlight. She looked at my throat, not with need this time, with vow. "Mine," she said, voice now layered with something older. "Pack." I swallowed, then nodded once. "Yeah," I said, "pack." The word felt strange on my tongue, true anyway. The slaver vessel latched onto my ship with a magnetic clamp. The hull shuddered. My system screamed warnings. Dancer's voice came tight. "They are attempting to breach. I can vent the cargo bay." "No," I snapped. "Not with her scent trail. Not with," I glanced at Sable. "Not with us on board. We fight smart. Humans don't win by being stronger. We win by being stubborn and by using the environment like a weapon." I ran to the armory cabinet and yanked it open. The weapons inside were legal barely. A shock baton, a compact coil pistol, A net launcher meant for animal control on frontier worlds. I grabbed the net launcher. Sable watched, head tilted. "Toy," she rumbled. "It's not a toy," I said. "It's a plan." The breach alarm screamed. Somewhere forward, metal screamed back as a cutter bit into my hull. I positioned myself at the corridor choke point leading from the docking ring toward my quarters. Narrow hallway, hard corners, limited line of sight. Sable crouched beside me, muscles coiled, claws digging shallow grooves into the deck plating. "You don't have to do this," I said quietly. "You can hide." "I can." She snapped her jaws inches from my ear, not biting, just punctuating. "Chain men take," she said. "Pack fights." My throat tightened. "Okay." The hull finally gave, footsteps thudded, voices 2, 3, maybe 4 filtered down the corridor. "Keep it clean," someone muttered. "Boss wants her alive." I leaned forward, net launcher ready, heart hammering so hard I could taste it. The first slaver rounded the corner. He never saw the net. It burst across his chest in a tangle of smart filament, tightening instantly. He stumbled, cursing, trying to cut free. The second raised a weapon. Sable moved. She was a shadow and a storm. She hit him low, claws ripping his gun hand open like paper, then slammed him into the bulkhead hard enough that the metal rang. He screamed. The corridor filled with the stink of fear. The third slaver fired blindly down the hall. Bolts scorched the wall inches from my face. I ducked, rolled, and shot my coil pistol once, aiming not to kill but to disable. The round punched through his thigh. He went down howling. Sable turned toward him, teeth bared. "Stop," I barked, sharper than I meant. Her head snapped toward me, her pupils flared. For a heartbeat I thought she'd ignore me, instinct overriding reason. Then she shuddered, claws flexing, and stepped back. Consent, rules, pack. She was listening. I exhaled hard, dizzy with relief. The fourth slaver, smarter than the others, didn't come charging. He stayed back, voice slick. "Easy," he called. "We can negotiate. Salvager, you don't want trouble. That creature's dangerous. She'll kill you in your sleep." Sable's ears flattened. I answered before she could. "She hasn't," I said, voice cold. "And you're the one bleeding on my floor." The slaver laughed weakly. "You think she's grateful. You think she's yours. They bond by claiming throats. She'll mark you, then rip you apart when the moon hits." Sable's gaze flicked to my neck. A rumble vibrated in her chest, anger, shame, fear twisted together. I lifted my chin slightly, exposing my throat again, not to her teeth but to her eyes. "I trust her," I said. The corridor went still. Sable's breath hitched. Her claws retracted a fraction. The slaver cursed under his breath. "Idiot!" He threw a canister. Gas bloomed, sharp and sweet, rolling down the corridor in a low fog. Sable snarled and lunged back. I shouted, grabbing her arm. The gas was designed for her biology. I knew it instantly because it didn't make my eyes water. It didn't make me cough. It was targeted. Sable's movements faltered. Her muscles trembled. The morphogenic strength in her body sputtered like a flame starved of oxygen. Her eyes went wide, panicked. The slaver stepped forward, weapon raised, confidence returning. "There we go, quiet now, back in chains." Sable's gaze locked onto my throat again, desperate, pleading, sleep unsafe, need claim to rest, need claim to live. My mind raced. The collar was gone, but her nervous system still believed safety had a shape. Teeth at throat, pack vow, anchor point. So I gave her an anchor. I stepped in front of her, between her and the slaver, and tilted my head, baring my neck fully. "Now," I said softly to her. "Sable, claim." Her eyes flared. For a split second, her instincts overrode the gas. She surged forward and pressed her teeth to my throat, firm, not breaking skin, just like before. The vibration in her chest deepened. That resonant purr rolled through me like a drumbeat. And then something else happened, something I didn't expect. My translator implant, listening to her vocal frequencies and chemical markers, finally built a stable linguistic bridge. It flooded my senses with meaning, not words. Pack bond confirmed, threat shared, strength shared, her body steadied. The morphogenic response didn't flare, it focused. Not wild panic, but directed force. Like a blade instead of a bomb. Sable released my throat and moved like lightning through the gas, covering her mouth and nose with a fold of cloth she'd grabbed from my bedroll, some instinctive trick she'd learned the hard way. Humans taught by pain become innovators. So do aliens. She hit the slaver before he could fire. Her claws sliced his weapon in half. Her other hand grabbed his collar and slammed him down. She didn't kill him, she pinned him. Then she looked at me, question in her eyes. I stepped forward, coughing now as the gas finally hit my lungs in a delayed burn, and planted the shock baton against the slaver's neck. "Coalition law says you're done," I told him, and triggered it. He went limp. Silence filled the corridor, broken only by the ship's hum and Sable's harsh breathing. Dancer spoke softly. "I have transmitted a distress call with your logs. Coalition patrol is 2 hours away. 2 hours. In space, that's either nothing or eternity." Sable sank to her knees, suddenly exhausted. The gas had taken its toll. Her claws retracted fully, her shoulders narrowed. She looked small again, just a wounded person with 2 bright eyes. She touched her throat, then mine. "Pack," she whispered. "Safe," I crouched beside her. "Safe," I promised. "No more chains." She studied my face like she was memorizing it. Then slowly, carefully, she leaned in and pressed her forehead to my neck, an echo of the claim, gentler this time. Not possession, belonging. When the Coalition patrol arrived, they found a salvager ship with 4 unconscious slavers zip-tied to the deck, a forbidden restraint collar sealed in an evidence bag, and a human standing in the corridor with a bruised throat and a coil pistol held at rest, not as a threat but as a statement. The patrol officer, a tired woman with iron gray hair, looked at the scene, then at me. "You're lucky," she said. I glanced back at Sable, who stood just behind me, close enough that her breath warmed my shoulder. Her eyes never left the officer's hands. "No," I said, "I made a choice." The officer's gaze slid to Sable. "And her." Sable's lip twitched, teeth flashing. I lifted my chin a fraction, exposing my throat again, subtle but clear. "She's not property," I said. "She's crew if she wants. She's free either way." The officer held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded once. "We'll process the slavers. We'll offer asylum protocols. Sable didn't understand the words, but she heard the tone. Her shoulders loosened by a degree. Later, after the patrol left and the ship settled into quiet, Sable stood at my quarters' doorway again, hesitating like the threshold might bite. "Sleep," she said, but the word was different now, less desperate, more hopeful. I patted the cot. "Yeah," I said, "sleep." She climbed in behind me as if it was the only way she'd ever known. Her arms slid over my chest. Her breath warmed my neck, but her teeth didn't clamp down. Instead, she pressed her mouth gently to the side of my throat, barely there, and hummed that low resonance again. My translator offered a final, soft overlay. "Pack vow, guard, not hurt." In the dark, with the stars spinning beyond thin metal walls, I let my eyes close. Humans are strange to the galaxy. We pack bond with anything that looks lonely. We will throw ourselves between a predator and its prey, even when we're the softest thing in the room. And sometimes, rarely, the predator decides we're not prey at all.